Today we're going to be looking at some of the biggest transfers that have happened this summer, which have had the most positive impact on the player's SO5 performance. If you're new to the channel, I make all kinds of videos about SoRare and football in general, so a subscription to the channel will be greatly appreciated. If you haven't heard of SoRare and are interested in learning, I'll leave a few beginner videos in the description, and you can use the link that is there to sign up, and you'll receive a free limited card after purchasing 5 from the auction market. Let's get into these players then. So the first player that we're going to talk about is a player I actually own myself, which is Rodrigão, who now plays for Zenit in the Russian Premier League. As you can see down here, I bought him at 30 quid and he's now up at 200 quid, which is a really great profit. He was a solid player at Sochi last year, who were also in the Russian Premier League. They finished second last year, which was a bit of an outlier for them. But as you can see here, he put up some really good scores. If we look all time, he had a few DMPs, but when he did play, he put up some really solid scores. He's a centre back who plays the ball a lot, had some really good all-round scores. This summer, however, he joined Zenit St. Petersburg, which are the best team in the Russian league. They tend to have more possession than Sochi. If you look at some of the other players that Zenit have in the same position, you can look at Douglas Santos, who's a great scorer on the Matrix. And he's worth like 350 to 400 pound, which is why Rodrigão is worth about 200 pound now. As you can see, he has great L5 and L15, 72 and 64. First few games of the season, he's put in some decent performances. First game, they conceded in the last minute. He would have had a 60 performance there, 67, 63. For a Challenger Europe team, he's brilliant at 200 pound. He is a bit expensive on the rare side, especially now. Before he moved to Zenit, he wasn't too expensive. He was sort of like 900 quid, which is a decent amount, but now he's around 2,000, which maybe is a bit too much. But if he has a few not so good performances, then he will probably drop, and I would definitely recommend picking him up. As I say, I've picked him up and I've been very impressed with what I've watched from him so far. So the second player that I've picked out is Sebastian Szymanski. I'm not sure how you pronounce that, but he played for Dynamo Moscow in the Russian league last year. And as you can see here, he's got some really good scores, really high potential. He's got 6 scores over 80 in his last 40 games, which is really, really impressive, especially for a side such as Dynamo Moscow, who are a good team in the Russian league, but they're not, like, as I say, they're not at Zenit. They're not as good as Zenit. And he was a free transfer, I believe, or maybe I'm thinking of someone else, but he moved to Feyenoord, who are one of the better teams in the Eredivisie, which I would say is also a weaker league. So as you can see, he was sort of £90 when he was at Dynamo Moscow, and when the news broke, he's gone up to £250. Another thing about him is he's under 23 for the rest of the season, and I honestly think he's one of the better under 23 midfielders. And the price hasn't really caught up. If you think about Joey Veerman, who's like 700 quid now, 250 quid for Szymanski is really, really good. He's got a 64 L40, which is one of the best that you're going to get, especially for that price. I haven't seen too much of him, and I have heard from a lot of people who do watch Feyenoord that their system does rely on having a strong attacking midfielder, which is where he plays. Last year they had Gus Till. We'll just have a look at him. He didn't score too well. He now plays for PSV. He had some decent scores, as you can see, but I've heard from people who are more knowledgeable on Feyenoord and in the Eredivisie that he's going to score really, really well as a better player than Gus Till. So you're looking at maybe a 60 at L5 and L15, which for a under 23 midfielder is really, really good, and especially for that price of only £250. The third player that I've picked out is Cedson Fernandes. Now, if you look at these scores, you might be a bit like, oh, he's only played 20%. He's only played 33% of the last 40. He was at Benfica all this time here, didn't really play. Got a move to Rizespor in the Super League, and as you can see, despite only playing 11 games, he hit 3 scores over 98, including 2 100s. He is also an under 23 midfielder, and if he can put up the scores that he did last season for Rizespor, bearing in mind that Rizespor are like a lower table team in Turkey, he's now joined Besiktas, who are one of the better teams in Turkey. Now, I'm not saying he's going to have the same impact there, because obviously he was the main point of this Rizespor team. Like he carried them all the way through the season. Well, all the games that he played, he was their best player by far. So he's not going to be the same at Besiktas, but if he can carry these scores in any sense and can do them consistently, which is the main problem, you've only seen 11 games from him. Obviously it's a very small sample size, so you can't really expect him to put this kind of level on for the whole season, but there is a chance that he does that, and if he does, as an under 23 midfielder, the price is already kind of built in at £355, but I feel like if he can put up these scores, maybe in L15 and L40 of between 65 and 70, which, you know, is possible considering what he's done here, then he's going to be worth more than that. And I just think this transfer really suits him. It will be interesting to see how he plays in a better team. Obviously, there's a big difference between that Rizespor team and this Besiktas team. But yeah, I think he's definitely one to keep an eye on for the season coming up. So this next player is another player that I own myself. Is Josh Cullen, who plays for Burnley now in the Championship. I picked him up when he was playing for Anderlecht, around £40. As you can see, he was very consistently £40 at a limited. And he went up to 120 because in his first game for Burnley, he was absolutely brilliant. 44 all-round score, and that's with a yellow card. I watched this game, and he was by far the best player on the pitch. He got man of the match in that game. As you can see, he's just such a consistent scorer. Barely gets below, well, he never gets below 40, rarely gets below 50. He followed company from Anderlecht to Burnley, and I always think that that's a good sign for a player. If a manager wants to bring them from their old team to their new team, they really do believe in them. It was the same with Harwood Bellis, who went from Anderlecht to Burnley as well. You would consider that, you know, he was at a top side in Belgium, and now he's gone to a top side in the Championship. Based on that first performance they put in against Huddersfield, just a 1-0 win, but Huddersfield nearly got promoted last year, so they're probably going to be one of the best teams in the league. So I feel like Burnley are going to have a really good season. Even the rare price at only 600 quid, obviously that has gone up recently, but at 90 quid for a limited, he's got some really good scores. He barely ever misses a game. If you look at his all-time graph, the last time that he missed a game was, you know, game week 154. Which is literally 150 game weeks ago. He doesn't miss games. He plays every single game. I've heard from a lot of people who are more knowledgeable in the Championship that they expect him to be the best midfielder in the Championship, if not one of the best, top 3 at least. He has spiked from that first game. Obviously he's come a little bit down. He was at sort of £100, now he's getting picked up for £80. If you can get him anywhere below £70, then he's going to be a really good midfielder this year, and for your Challenger Europe teams, he's going to be brilliant, I feel like. So this last player that I've picked out is not necessarily a transfer, he's just returned from loan, and that's Adrien Trebel. As you can see here, he had a really nice period at the end of last season. He played for Lausanne Sport in Switzerland. He wasn't playing for one of the better teams in Switzerland, and he was still putting up really good scores. And he got 100, he got an 80, 84. And he's returned to Anderlecht, playing, you know, in place of Josh Cullen, who I just talked about. And in his first 2 games, he's hit a 96 and a 94. He's not only got a decisive, but his all-round has been unbelievable. It's similar to Cedson Fernandes. He's not got too many games on the Matrix, but as you can see, he's only ever hit one below a 50, and that was he must have had an error leading to a goal or something. He got a red card. So he's really consistent, and people have kind of picked up on that recently. I was looking at him pre-season at sort of 45 quid. Nobody knew whether he was going to start for Anderlecht, and well, he's started very well. And now he's up at £150. Similar to Josh Cullen, he's had a bit of a spike due to the good start of the season. But if you can pick him up anywhere, well, I'd say anywhere below maybe £100, maybe £95, if he has a couple of bad games, then he's going to be one you really need to look at. He's got 4 L40 scores, 4 L15 scores of over 80, which is really good. And yeah, he's playing in a top team in Belgium, whereas he wasn't playing in a top team in a worse league. So really, nobody really knows what to expect from him. But from these 2 performances, he's going to be a really good player. So that's going to be all for this video. I've just picked out those 5. If you'd like me to do another video with another 5 that I've having a look at, or maybe 5 players that aren't going to suit the Matrix after their transfer, then I can have a look at that. If you did enjoy this video, I would appreciate if you leave a like on it. This is my first video about SoRare, and any opinions or constructive criticism in the comments would be very much appreciated, and hopefully I'll see you in the next video.